All right, hey everyone, Nerdy Cool Dad podcast going on here again. I've got a special guest for you all, my good friend Kyle Campbell. And Kyle, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I know this is a big step in everyone's direction in life right now. Having you on the Nerdy Cool Dad podcast and all, but I'm very appreciative of you coming on board here. One of the reasons I have Kyle on the show is, given the whole COVID-19 crisis we're facing right now, Kyle's one of the guys on the front line as he's a bylaw officer for, is it Oshawa or is it Durham?
It's Oshawa, yeah.
Oshawa. Okay, so I'm sure you've got some interesting stories to tell me. What I'm interested in knowing is like I have little faith in humanity. From whether it was being at the old frat house or anything like that, seeing some of the behavior there, or just seeing people up and down the street doing some weird things and whatever I see posted on social media. What's it like for you out there right now?
It's different. It's changing every single day, and I got to tell you, it was pretty incredible. I mean, the first day that they really announced the social distancing and the essential businesses. Going into work every day, I come from Bowmanville, so I've got a 20-minute drive. And the traffic was immediately split in half, and it seems to be decreasing every single day. I mean, I'm getting to Oshawa in less than 18 minutes now, which is absurd. Before it was taking me about 20 to 25 at least. The 401 is pretty much 80% transport trucks. From what I've seen, people are doing a really, really good job at staying indoors. And I know there's a lot of hype going around on social media and people shaming each other and sort of blaming each other. But I that might be a bit more boredom than anything. But from what I've seen, I'm out in the car every single day driving around, and I've never seen the streets kind of so empty to an extent. I mean, the one thing is there's a lot more people out walking around these days. I mean, I've never seen so many people take up running, and people's dogs are getting walked 800 times a day. And I'm seeing Shih Tzus that are in amazing shape because they're being walked daily. So
yeah,
it's definitely an interesting evolution in the way people are, handling this. So, you're pretty close to the downtown too, John. What have you noticed in terms of,
Yeah,
people?
well, I mean, on the dog front, I've taken my dog out every day as well. I think she's gained or lost a year at least. I don't know how to do the math on that one, but she's definitely more youthful. Was like a little sausage throughout the winter months there. So great to see. Now I do a walk just around my block in the core of things. And I come across a few people, but not much. There's not a lot going on, but I also have a Tim Hortons down the street from me. And I definitely still see people going back and forth, but for the most part, it's construction crews, city crews, stuff like that. That's pretty much all I'm seeing on a daily basis in my area, but I'm not really venturing too far away. I know down the road, just on Ritson, and anyways, they had I don't know, there's this shady convenience store that gets robbed all the time, and I got robbed last weekend. So I saw a bunch of cruisers around there, but I think that's the most activity I've seen in a while. That's about it. I'd be curious to know, parks, things like that. Are you issuing fines, or is that something that's occurring frequently, or how does that look?
So every day it is evolving, and there's a lot of steps that kind of come into play here. The Canada's such a free country. We're not going to just throw everything on lockdown day 2 and expect everybody to sort of follow the rules. So it seems to me like the provincial and federal governments are just putting in a little bit of a layer each couple days or every other day to sort of ease everybody into this lockdown that nobody's used to or interested in. I mean, the way you and I have lived our lives, if you just tell somebody that, oh, you have to stay home now, and if you leave your house, you're going to be getting $1,000 fine, people aren't going to handle that very well. So you sort of have to introduce it slowly, kind of like the old theory of boiling a frog. If you throw him in right away, he's going to jump out, but if you do it slowly, And there's obviously good reasons behind everything, but the provincial government has recently introduced or used the Emergency Act, which requires businesses that are not deemed to be essential to remain closed. Now, people have argued that the list of essential businesses is pretty robust. I mean, including everything from Tim Hortons to beer stores and LCBOs. But regardless of that, non-essential businesses are required to be closed. And you did mention parks. Most municipalities have closed the majority of their park facilities. That would be playgrounds, basketball courts, soccer fields, that kind of thing. Now, the actual parks are still open for walkthroughs. And people are utilizing those, but beaches and the playgrounds, everything is closed. And the provincial government has sort of downloaded and given the authority to bylaw officers across all municipalities to enforce the provincial legislation, which is never really been done in my time from what I've seen. They're increasing the authority of bylaw officers quite a bit and really using them wherever possible to sort of enforce the smaller, less serious issues of social distancing. I mean, we're not out there. It sort of keeps the police open to do policing in case there's domestic calls and car accidents and robberies, these kinds of things. So we're kind of out in the front lines, keeping people out of the parks. And but people do a great job. It's sort of a socially enforced law as well. People feel shame in Canada, and if the dog park, for example, has been closed for a couple of days, and the dog park in Oshawa is a very popular place. I was there yesterday, and I've never seen it so quiet. It's incredible that people really seem to be following the rules. I'm very, very impressed.
Yeah. Do you think there might be changes long term as far as giving you new duties now that maybe you didn't have before, and seeing success in it, and maybe that becomes more of a role that you guys can take on?
Everything that we've been given so far is temporary. I mean, businesses aren't going to be closed forever. The parks will eventually reopen. So there has been a huge shift in our responsibilities. I mean, when people think of bylaw officers, they think of parking tickets and noise complaints, all the stuff that everybody hates. And that's such a small part of our job traditionally, right? There's so much more that we do, but we've seen a shift from that traditional structure to basically just helping out, all hands on deck with the social distancing and the education for parks. And I think you mentioned fines earlier. That's probably going to come eventually. I know everybody seems to follow Toronto's suit. In Toronto, I know John Tory announced yesterday that they're going to be out in full force issuing fines. So I mean, I'm sure people in Toronto can see that coming.
I mean, sometimes you got to make an example out of people, unfortunately.
Yeah,
for everyone to take it seriously.
You've probably seen the videos online, people posting them of kids playing on the playgrounds and, people hanging out just.
I posted the one of that idiot yesterday who took down the caution tape at some park just for some weird reason. I'm a free man, he said.
And you know what? People are going to argue that all day. We have the right to travel. So many rights and freedoms in Canada. And it's a very interesting, collision of those rights and these new laws that people are trying to implement. I'm glad you brought up the caution tape as well. I mean, you see that caution tape everywhere over the play structures and a lot of beaches and the parks. And the government's trying to do a really good job of just making it very clear, we can't be gathering here. And for the most part, people are doing a pretty good job at minding it. So
how do you? I mean, maybe you haven't even crossed the situation yet, but how do you deal with someone who's acting like, this is my right and freedom. I'm a Canadian. This is a free country. I can do whatever I want. And, that sort of argument, even though you gotta approach it with some empathy, at the end of the day, they're potentially endangering thousands of lives based on how things can travel. So how do you deal with that?
It's a real challenge. It is, because I mean, it's something that personally I haven't come across yet. Like I said, everybody's been very understanding, and it's sort of an easy thing to enforce. People really get it because it's health driven, and it's for the greater good of society. I mean, how do you argue the fact that all the medical officials and medical officers are saying we need to stay apart? This is serious. This is a virus that can transmit very easily and can be very impactful on your health. So people are really getting that. and
Yeah.
I think are sort of willing to accept that, okay, maybe I can stay inside for a couple weeks. I'm not gonna, but people love to challenge authority. Don't get me
Of
wrong. Like
course.
any other time of my job, people love to argue and state their rights, which is fantastic. But you just have to explain to them, I mean, where you're coming from and the purpose for you being there and doing your job, and people usually do get it. So
Yeah. Do you have to deal with any businesses at all, or is that the police that deals with that?
the police is in taking those calls right now.
Okay.
Um, I haven't seen any non-essential businesses really operating, and I
Well,
think
you'd
I
be
would have heard.
surprised what people will do behind the scenes to keep
You're
it
right,
open.
yeah, and that's always going on. But I would have thought that it would be more obvious on social media. People would be posting videos like, "Oh my goodness, can you believe that?" Oh gosh, I can't even think of a business that wouldn't be allowed to be open because the list of essential businesses is so robust. I
Dog
mean, oh my
grooming?
goodness, a furniture store. Oh, people would be like, "Oh, the brick is open," and I think it would be very out there for everybody to see or something like that. So,
Well, yeah.
uh,
Well, I had this lady who lives around the corner from me say, "Yeah, if you're still interested in babysitting services, I'd love to help. I'm coronavirus free." I'm thinking, you
yeah, I
just
wouldn't
lost
take that.
all credibility with me. So I don't think
Yeah.
that's happening. But I mean, there's certain things, but it is what it is. How's the student neighborhood? What you got to deal with anything there? Is it a ghost town?
It's very quiet. I think a lot of the students have gone home, to spend the time with their parents and quarantine with their parents. I mean, they've got unlimited resources there. I know if it was me and I was back in university, I'd be back home with mom and dad. You've got the computers there, you've got food there, you got
Yeah.
everything. I was telling my buddy the other day, if this quarantine happened when I was 16, 17 years old, it'd be a dream come true. I'd be sitting there playing Halo
Oh,
3 for 2 months
yeah.
and never
Time of
even
my life.
get
Smoking
but
pot
now,
and playing video games all day long.
that's right. That's right. It would be easy. So, oh my gosh, now we got responsibilities and whatnot. It's a little more challenging, but we'll hang in there. So,
Yeah. So I gotta ask, what sort of mental toll has this taken on you and your fiance? I know you had to cancel your wedding because you had a destination wedding planned for, was it April
it was April
or
1st. We were supposed to
April? Oh,
fly out a
geez.
few days ago. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
so tell me about it. What was that like?
yeah. Amidst everything else, like if that hasn't been enough, I mean, it's just so detrimental. I mean, we've been looking forward to this and planning it for almost a year
Yeah.
now. And the planning that goes into it, I know your brother had a destination wedding, so I think you can you've seen firsthand,
Yeah.
what goes into it. And a lot of people sort of underestimate the work that goes in and the
There's plenty of
time.
logistics, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And to see it all just go to waste is just heartbreaking. So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be strong, obviously, for Aaron, but as you can imagine, when a lady's told that her wedding is going to be delayed, it's
Yeah.
not easy to take. So,
How was
we,
it with the travel companies? Were they understanding? Did they give
well,
refunds, all that sort of stuff? Or
we used a travel agent,
okay,
which should be a good thing. We used Sunwing as the merchant, so the travel agent sort of facilitates the booking through to Sunwing. Now, initially, what Sunwing did was in early March canceled all flights south from early March until April 9th, and they were offering refunds.
yeah,
So our flights would have fallen into those 2 weeks or 3
yeah,
weeks, whatever it was, and they were offering us a refund. So I said, great. We put in for a request. We said, yeah, let's take the refunds, no problem. A few days later, they changed their policy to cancel all flights until the end of April.
hmm,
And they decided, no, we're not giving refunds anymore, which is
okay,
crazy. They're offering travel vouchers or travel credit, which is essentially like a credit for what you've paid to Sunwing. You can use it at any time, but there's so many restrictions on it. It's crazy. So you have to
okay,
use it within 24 months, which isn't a big deal. 2 years to use it is fine.
yeah,
What am I going to do with over $10,000 worth of travel credits that have to be used in one single flight? They're
yeah.
non-transferable.
Not to mention, yeah, it's Sunwing. Like, you want to
They
go
won't.
to
Yeah, it's not even like
first
a gift
class
card.
to Mexico.
If anybody's flown Sunwing, you know how it is too. It's very
No
cramped up.
bells and whistles. A
Yeah.
bus on wings.
Oh my gosh.
But it
So
comes
that's
with free champagne.
yeah. Oh, the tiniest little 4-ounce glass, I think. It's absolutely a nightmare. Yeah. So we're we're sort of in the midst of trying to get our money back. There is a class action lawsuit that's been announced a few days ago by Evo Link Law in British Columbia. There's a travel rights group on Facebook. There's a petition going around. People are, talking small claims. People are talking credit card chargeback disputes. Everything's in the mix, and airlines are just doing whatever they can to hold on to our money, which is illegal in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. There's a lot of media attention and press about what's going on with the airlines right now. It's a little shady, if you ask me. Yeah. But I won't get into it too much and bore you guys. So,
hey, nothing boring about airline policies at all.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is Sunwing under any sort of umbrella, or are they independent?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like,
do they operate on their own, or are they like part of Air Canada?
No. Yeah, so they are their own entity. They do. Oh my gosh, there is something funny about Sunwing that I heard. Like, they don't even have their own terminal at Pearson Airport. They just
they had like a pop-up kiosk last time I went on there. I had to fly Sunwing from Vancouver to Toronto one time, and like they were like 2 hours delayed. They had no proper terminals, just everyone hanging out in the hallway basically. Yeah. Like, it was a disaster.
They're definitely not as well established as Air Canada, but I mean, we're hoping that they don't declare bankruptcy from this, because then the travel vouchers, if that's what we're stuck with, are really rendered useless. So
yeah, so that's literally all you've gotten at this point is just a voucher. You haven't got any money back.
That's it. Yeah.
What about the resort?
The resort has been pretty good. I mean, they're totally closed down. So they did give us back the deposit for the wedding.
Okay, so you didn't pay your full amount for your stay yet?
No.
No. Well, that's good.
Well, I mean, Sunwing takes all the money in for the package, the hotel, and this and that. But the money that we paid for the wedding directly to the hotel was reimbursed. So it was.
So Sunwing's holding on to money that didn't even belong to them either.
They haven't even spent it. It doesn't belong to them. Like you said, a big portion of that will go to Ryu, who is the resort, which they haven't even given back. It's crazy.
Wow, that's insane. Well,
I
know I won't be flying on Sunwing anytime soon for many reasons.
Yeah, me too, unless I get this voucher.
So what's the plan? You guys just taking it one day at a time then, or?
We have no idea, because I mean, initially we were looking at, maybe July to have a domestic wedding, something local, local business. But they're really talking about this thing going on for at least another 90 days. And who knows how long it is till we're back to reality. And everybody's weddings who's been canceled over the next couple of months, and I've seen quite a few. My cousin unfortunately had to postpone hers as well. Everybody's going to be trying to get married all at once in the next 12 months. So it's going to be crazy. Tough to find a date, and it's going to be a challenge for sure. But posted.
I mean, I could see a lot of people going doing more domestic, low key thing. Something to celebrate their day, but given this whole catastrophe that we're dealing with right now, maybe a big lavish wedding isn't what people necessarily want to do, unless they want to push it out a bit longer. But no one's going to want to push their wedding date out another year or two. Like that's crazy. You want to get it done, right? So
exactly. Yeah,
it's an interesting challenge. Sorry that you have to go through that, but
that's okay.
How can you predict a thing like this, right?
Oh, that's it. Nobody can, and it's unprecedented times. I understand that we've never really gone through this before, but we can't just throw all contracts out the window. I mean, here's another topic that I've found very interesting lately is the housing market. There was a house in my area that sold a few weeks ago, a lot more than I had expected. It was definitely over asking. They had a bidding war. There was 4 offers on it. So it sold for a lot of money, and as you can imagine, the closing date's probably 60 to 90 days, and the housing market is always delayed in terms of how it reacts to the economy. So I mean, in 2 months from now, if the housing market does take a dip, people are going to be trying to get out of their contracts, and people are going to be trying to walk away from houses, and there's all these things that are going to come up, and we're going to have to sort them out later. And I think that's what the government's doing with the airlines is, we have to just kind of put it to the side for now, see how things play out, and then, get back to it later, because there are more pressing issues, like you said, like the immediate health risks and making sure businesses are closed and the borders are closed and these kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. No, the housing market's definitely an interesting one. I can see a lot of people. I mean, I've mentioned it a few times, and we have tons of friends that live in condos and apartments and stuff like that. Like,
Hmm.
I could see people getting pretty antsy. Maybe an experience like this is like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I want to move to the suburbs. Maybe that becomes more of a thing after all this. Kind of hard to say what's gonna happen, but I don't know. If yeah, if I wasn't at my house right now, I think I'd probably lose it. So
Yeah, no, that's a
uh,
great point. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But anyways, you know what? I won't take up too much more of your time. Actually, I did have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Since we're supposed to be playing on the same soccer team this summer, do you think the parks and stuff like that? I have to assume that stuff is going to be delayed as well, like any
I,
organized sports and things of that nature.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been announced right now. I know, as you know, there's still, I think they collected our fees last week,
Yeah,
which was kind of funny. You know, they're hunting us down for money to start
yeah,
soccer in May.
yeah,
And with the way things are going, it's not looking good right now. I think what we can hope for is to get soccer running probably, mid to late June to get it
yeah,
started. And they'll hopefully refund a portion of our team fees for whatever's not used. But I mean, I'm very optimistic about everything. I'm a very optimistic person, and people have been comparing us to Italy and Spain and even the States. I mean, we live in the best country in the world. I mean, we're not anything like Italy or Spain in terms of population density and our culture and this and that.
yeah.
We're very spread out. We do like our space, and we're very blessed in that sense. I don't see this becoming nearly as big of an issue there.
No.
Uh, and I think as long as we adhere to the social distancing, I think we're going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. I'm not a medical officer or anything like that, but I mean,
Yeah.
with the testing, I have a friend who was tested for it, and it's been 12 days, and he still hasn't received his results. So you
Well,
got to
yeah,
look.
that's kind of what I was pointing out on I think it was my Monday podcast.
Yeah,
The numbers in Canada specifically, and I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, are very delayed. I was
yeah,
told up to 14 days prior. The expectation was 5 days to get a result, but they're doing. Canada is not testing enough people, and the tests that they are using are quite delayed. So the numbers you see right now are incredibly behind. So I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that our numbers could spike up to that of maybe not necessarily Italy or Spain, but I mean, you never know. It could be in the hundreds of thousands by the time this is all said and done. So everything's growing exponentially right now. The U.S. is just completely out of control. So um, at least we got something to scare us into what our reality could be.
yeah,
Now we know we have a better medical system than they do, and people weren't afraid to get tested because it would bankrupt them, or they couldn't afford to do it. What
yeah,
was it, like
yeah,
$2,000 to get tested or something like that, prior to their legislation to allow it to be free.
yeah.
But even still, I don't know what they've done in the U.S. necessarily, but it's like, okay, well, you can get the testing free. Everything else is going to cost you money. So, do you want to get tested? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's absolute chaos over there right now. And just looking at the numbers, they almost hit 30,000 in one day yesterday. They will today.
Wow.
They 100% will today. We're well over 1 million cases, which I predicted by the end of the week. We beat that by 3 days. So, I mean, it's yeah. I don't think the curve is going to flatten. I'd say till the end of April, probably.
Have
My
you seen?
prediction.
Have you heard anything about Sweden and the way Sweden's handling all this?
No, but we actually have a fraternity brother who lives out there. I can't remember his name, but I have him on
No
Facebook.
way. You should reach out to him. From what I've heard, now don't take this for fact, but from what
Yeah.
I've heard, they've got a very interesting way of dealing with this. And what they've done is basically put everybody over the age of 70 on complete lockdown and total quarantine, just isolate them from everybody. What they're doing is protecting their vulnerable.
Hmm.
And the rest of society is carrying on somewhat normal from what I understand. And that's a great way to sort of salvage your economy from what I could
Hmm.
understand. And I mean, as bad as this virus is, I think it's more so the vulnerable and the elderly that are really being hit hard. I think the majority can, we'll be getting pretty mild symptoms from what I've heard anyways. So,
It's hard to say though, because at the same time, and I've heard that argument too, I've also heard different arguments that like when it goes from one human to a next, it mutates slightly. So a virus like this that we don't know much about is not something that you can say, okay, well, I mean, if it's working for them, great. They're covering, a big portion that would be vulnerable to an attack by this. But viruses are crafty, like something like this. I mean, it's scary because we literally don't know anything about it. We have no immune system to it. So, it's yet to be seen, but I mean, their numbers are a hell of a lot better than ours. So from what I remember, I'm going to fact check that, but that's my understanding at least.
One more thing for you. I mean, people have been throwing around the idea of just closing everything, just go on total lockdown. Let's get through this. Let's just, you know what I mean? Like, what's your opinion on? So what's your opinion on just shutting her down and hunkering down, bringing in the army for 2 weeks and beating it? What do you think about that?
I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Like, how is it not going to happen? I mean, a couple of reasons. They're pulling the troops back home from some places around the world, which they probably should have done a long time ago. And you probably want to keep those people working. So something to do, which sounds weird, but I mean, that's probably the reality of things. There's always going to be people that aren't listening. I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the percentage of people that just don't give a shit or think this is still like a ridiculous hoax or something. I wouldn't even say the word hoax. Maybe a month ago. But I don't know. Time and time again, I've seen people surprise me and just not give a shit about this sort of thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if you had to bring in a bigger presence to sort this out. We've had our numbers at bay. In comparison to other nations, we're doing pretty well. But again, we know how behind we are on actual numbers. We know how quickly things can spread. And it was to be expected when everyone came home from like spring break or things like that things would get out of hand. So we still don't know the impact of that. If our tests are still 2 weeks behind, think about that. People came home from spring break about 2 weeks ago, and we still don't have the results of everything because you might not show symptoms for a week or 2 weeks. And so there's so much going on. You don't know who you've infected, who you've touched, how many people are still going to takeout restaurants every day. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. No, those are absolutely great points. And I've been arguing, and a lot of people have that view, and I've sort of been arguing on the other side just a little bit in terms of
you said you're a positive person.
Yeah, I know, but you have to sort of balance everything. And if the economy really goes, we have to protect the economy as much as we can, because if that really goes down the drain and small businesses, go under and people lose all their jobs. And that creates a whole range of other issues. I'm talking mental health and just the ability to survive. So we've really got to balance sort of the health with the economic and the social aspect, because if people become socially isolated too much, again, like mental health issues, and people become depressed, and it's so challenging. So that's why I'm going to look more into Sweden's model, because I really piqued my interest last night when I heard about that.
Yeah. So last question for you. What are you going to do when this is all said and done?
Oh my gosh, I haven't even thought about that. That's a great question. As much as anything, I just want to get out of here and go lay on a beach or something like that.
I don't think you'll be able to go to a beach right away, but
hey, as soon as airlines open, I'll have a pretty big travel credit I can use. So maybe
if Sunwing's still in business.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's hard to say what everyone's going to do. Now, I work with a lot of travel companies at my current job, and they're all struggling big time, but they're just waiting. They're salivating at how much money they're going to make once bans are lifted and people can travel again, because everyone's just like all pent up, and you're saving a lot of money because you're not spending going out. And I mean, for me, I don't have my kid in school right now, so I'm saving like close to like $1,300 a month not paying to go to Montessori school. So it adds up. And my wife yesterday is like, oh, maybe we should get a hot tub. Like, okay, maybe, but I don't know.
That's a good idea. Well, if you look at the cost of flights for next year and vacations, the exact vacation that we booked you can't get it for less than $600 more per person now. They've hiked up all the prices.
Oh, they're just this. They're anticipating a huge bump in travel and their pricing, or they don't want people to take advantage of the economy right now. Now, I think that's maybe more of a North American structure. Like Europe is such a different place. Like you for a weekend. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go to Spain this weekend. Yeah, sure. You want to come? Why not? It'd be like $100 if that to fly there from like anywhere. It's a different place. North America, it's a weird system where everything's so damn expensive. It's kind of hard to promote domestic travel when it's like I paid like $1,200 to fly to BC one time, like around the Christmas time. Like I could have gone to the UK for that money. So like, I don't know. It's bizarre, but what can you do?
Yeah.
Anyways, appreciate you coming on, chatting with me. It was really great chat, and keep safe in there, and hopefully you don't have to deal with too many weird situations.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.